Meanwhile, President Trump's legal team rejecting the latest terms for an interview with special counsel Robert Mueller, but still working toward some sort of a sit-down if the line of questioning is very narrow.
So will the president and Mueller ever go for a sit-down? Let's ask Jay Sekulow. He's a member of the president's legal team, chief counsel for the American Law for Law and Justice, which we are all for. Jay?
Glad to hear that.
We're pro-law and justice.
American Center.
Trey Gowdy said this last night on with Martha. I will tell the president, sit down and answer the question about what, if anything, you would know about Russia in 2016. And then answer the question about who, if anyone, did it with your team. And then don't answer any more questions. How do you feel about that?
Well, look, I appreciate everybody's advice, but they're not representing the president. And what people need to understand is the historical precedent that could be set here. The idea that a president could be asked questions about, first of all, his Article II authority, is counter to the Constitution. I mean, this whole notion that a president should be put in a place, especially in the scope of this investigation, to be questioned about why you took actions against, let's say, the former FBI director or whatever it might be. Here's the problem. The problem is not can the president answer the questions. Of course the president could answer the questions. The question is, should, under these circumstances, the president answer the questions? And you are now setting a precedent, not just for this president, but for the presidency. And my concern, quite frankly, in all of this is Article II core constitutional power of the presidency. And to allow questioning to go on with regard to decisions you make as president, I think it's not only absurd and outrageous, it makes no sense under the way our government's set up. Because if that was the case, then any U.S. attorney that had any question about any president's policy said, you know, I'm going to subpoena him and ask him some questions about that.
So if they don't sit down, if he doesn't talk to Mueller, then what happens next and how long does this go on? So
that's the process question. So they gave us an offer, which obviously it's pretty clear now we did not accept their offer. We countered. This is how this works. If you look at this historically, this is the way the back and forth goes on these. We've pointed out the irregularities in this investigation. I mean, the biggest news of late has been the whole Bruce Orr situation. So you had the number 4 at the United States Department of Justice. The number 4. His wife happens to work for Fusion GPS, who happens to be retained to put together the dossier with Chris Steele. And Chris Steele happens to be talking to the FBI and to Bruce Orr, the number 4 at the Justice Department. Christopher Steele gets fired for leaking information, yet Bruce Orr continues the ongoing dialogue. Then you could list the Page-Strzok series of emails. Right. You could list the salacious dossier. And then you put all of that together and you say, why in the world would this investigation have legitimacy at this point? It was really corrupt at its inception.
And that's why it sounds like they are all going to get hauled before Congress again. Goodlatte wants to interview Bruce Orr, who... You know,
still there.
Trying to put it all together. He was a narcotics prosecutor. How did he get involved in this? But his wife worked for Fusion GPS. They'd like to talk to Glenn Simpson as well.
They should.
Because there are too many questions that have no answers.
It's not just questions. The nature and scope of the conflict here. I mean, and then after he was fired, they fired Chris Steele for leaking. James Comey, another one that leaked, right?
He got fired, but he didn't stop talking to the FBI.
That's exactly right. He was still talking to the FBI, and Bruce Orr was still taking those conversations. So inappropriate. So that plays into this calculus you make as to whether you will submit to an interview. So here's the question will come at the end of the day. Will we be willing to sit down for an interview? Will we be able to do it by written questions? Or are we just going to say we're done? I mean, those are the issues that are going to come to head.
By the end of the day. You're going to make this by the end of the day?
I don't think it's going to be the end of the day. Because well, I mean,
because you did say this week.
Well, here's what we said this week. We responded. So we did respond this week.
With the counteroffer.
Yeah, the counteroffer, we responded. So now what happens is they have to respond to us.
Them.
And yes, and you know, I don't predict dates or percentages.
Okay.
But I have colleagues that do, and that's great. I don't predict dates or percentages. I will tell you this. This needs to be over with soon. I think it's been very bad for the country, and we're at a point in this inquiry where they can wrap it up. This has been the most transparent investigation in U.S. history. All of these documents given, all of these witnesses put forward, they really don't need to speak to the president. They haven't made the constitutional case to speak to the president.
And the Christian minister with Turkey, what's going on there? You put sanctions on a country because they acted on a person.
Let me tell you this. First of all, the one good news in this case, and this has been a very difficult 21 months for this family, American pastor.
Andrew Brunson.
Yeah, Andrew Brunson's been in Turkey for now 23 years, gets picked up in the aftermath of the coup, although he was in the United States when the coup took place. He's been in jail, the president has worked very aggressively to secure his defense. I mean, as aggressive as you can, and to secure his release. He has been released to house arrest, so we're kind of 60% of the way there. The next part, the most important part now, is how do we get from house arrest to back home in the United States, which is where he needs to be with his family. I will tell you this, the administration, the president, and his Secretary of State, our Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, the Vice President, the President, of course, are working diligently on this. There's not a day that goes by where the President and I aren't discussing it. He will come home, I believe.
Okay, and Turkey did send people over here to negotiate. Any progress?
You know what? Those are ongoing negotiations. You know what it is? Diplomacy takes time, and they're working through that process. So I remain hopeful that he will be home soon.
As we all do. Jay Sekulow, Chief Counsel of the American Center for Law and Justice. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.